What's up, guys? So we got a comment in yesterday that really struck a chord with me. And basically the first question that the guy posed was, how do I stop hating myself? And this one really hit home pretty quickly because, I've been dealing with depression for a long time. As many of you guys know, that led to my substance abuse issues, and that whatever ended with heroin abuse, and then I was forced to seek help. Rock bottom kind of pushed me there, but there's always been a underlying baseline of depression, and I think for a long time that's what I was trying to self-medicate through all the substance abuse issues. Depression was kind of always at the core. So just to give you a little bit of background, depression was kind of noticeable. I didn't know what it was, but around 13 years old, and coincidentally or not, that's when substance abuse came into the picture. Started drinking as often as I could get booze, which was pretty much on the weekends and stuff like that. And as high school went on, the drinking escalated, started turning into cocaine use, pills, and then eventually heroin. Brought me to my knees and forced me to seek help. But always that baseline of depression. And I didn't know really what depression was. I didn't know how to deal with it. I just knew that I didn't feel good. I didn't like myself. I didn't like where my life was at. And now hindsight, I can kind of look back and see what was going on a little bit. So I'll try to unpack that for you quickly, and I want to, then go over what really helped me come out of it. So hang out. When I was trying to self-medicate my depression, what ended up happening was I started to really behave in a way that was outside of, or not in alignment with my core values. So I was behaving in a way that I was not proud of. And what starts to happen when you do this is your subconscious mind starts to look at you as somebody that's not worth making good decisions for. So you're viewing yourself as somebody who is basically a piece of shit, and you start making decisions based off of who that person is. You start looking at yourself like you're not worth it, and it's all subconscious, and it's difficult because the subconscious is very hard to it's hard to change. You know what I mean? Like, you can't say like, hey, don't look at yourself that way, or you start to get these underlying beliefs about yourself deep down, and you're making decisions based off of that. And even when you try to make some progress, or if you see there's an issue there, what happens is self-sabotage becomes a big part of your life, and it did for me. So I would notice there was an issue, I would try to do something about it, but something in my subconscious would say like, hey, this person doesn't deserve that, and I would do something to screw it all up and start back at square one. And I think that's what becomes really difficult when you're dealing with depression, you're dealing with self-medication, addiction, substance abuse issues in general, is it's just a very negative, spiraling out of control sort of situation that can be hard to come to terms with, or it can be hard to get a hold of. And I struggled with this for a long time. So after I ran through, years of substance abuse issues, and I found myself in the depths of a serious heroin addiction, I got to the point where my life was completely unmanageable, and I knew that I had to do something to change it. And so I reached out for help. I started, on a maintenance program through Suboxone or whatever. It was Suboxone. But that's not it wasn't dealing with the depression at all. It was putting a quick Band-Aid on the addiction, which I did have to get a hold of because it was going to kill me at some point. But it also allowed me a little bit of space to start trying to understand what was going on with my depression and how I could start to handle it. So I didn't find anything for a while. So while I started to kind of, get my addiction under wraps, I was still really struggling with my depression, and I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know how to address it in a healthy way. And I was, went to a couple of psychiatrists and went to a couple of therapists and just really didn't have much. It didn't help me very much. And it wasn't their fault. They were doing everything they wanted to do, or they should have done. But I found myself just lying to them and telling them what they wanted to hear, which, as an addict, many of you know, we get really good at telling people what they want to hear. And whether they believed it or not, or whether they saw through it, whatever, but it didn't help me, and I kind of, just stopped going or whatever. It didn't address the issue. And I had a family friend, somebody that I really looked up to, give me a suggestion that I would not have taken if I didn't hold this person in such high regard, and that was to start utilizing guided hypnosis or guided meditation. Same thing as far as I'm concerned. I've used both sorts of programs, and I've gotten great benefits from both. And I honestly don't know that there's a great difference between the two. There's some subtle differences, but that's neither here nor there. The first program I used was cool. Like the instructions said, like, hey, listen to this 30 minutes, or it's about a 30-minute program. Listen to it before bed. Get comfortable. If you fall asleep, no big deal. The information's still going to kind of get into that subconscious, which I don't know if that's true or not, to be honest with you. But I'll explain how I know that it ended up working for me. The first night I listened to it, it was really cool. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was going to be really foo-foo-y and kind of bullshit, but I was intrigued. It was very relaxing. It was very soothing, and it allowed me to explore different parts of my mind that I had not ever been able to explore before. So basically, what was going on with this guided hypnosis was, it was the person, I don't know if the narrator or the hypnotist or whatever you want to call it, or the leader of the meditation, they were kind of guiding me into this frame of mind where I was looking at where I wanted to be. So I think an issue with my depression for a long time is I kept looking at who I was at that moment in time and the decisions that I made that day that I wasn't proud of, and it just never gave me any space between those decisions and the person that I was that day and who I wanted to become. With this guided meditation or hypnosis, it forced me to look at who I wanted to be, the person that I wanted to become, and it would make me look at that person in a very detailed sort of way. So they would say, what are you wearing? What kind of shape are you in physically? What are you driving? Where are you living? Who are you with? And I started to, really kind of visualize myself in a way that I was proud of. And the cool thing about the subconscious mind is it doesn't understand the difference between something that you imagine and something that you see. So when I was imagining myself in this way, it was starting to change the way that my subconscious viewed myself. I was essentially tricking myself into thinking that I was somebody that was worth making good decisions for. And again, it wasn't an overnight process, but slowly I started to make decisions based off of the person that I wanted to become instead of the person that I was at that very moment. And this was crucial for me because it gave me a little bit of breathing room to get away from just thinking that I was a complete piece of shit, which admittedly at that time, the way I was behaving, the way I was treating people, the way I was treating myself, the decisions I was making, I was not a good person at all, and I knew that, and I kept making decisions that enforced that negative behavior and that negative viewpoint of myself. So now, when I was able to start imagining the person that I wanted to become, I was, kind of essentially tricking myself subconscious into saying like, hey, this guy's worth making good decisions for. Maybe you should, maybe you should try to exercise. Maybe you should try to improve your nutrition. And that's when I really started to notice the compounding effects of making just good decisions instead of poor decisions. It was a couple years later. I was driving down the road with my dad, and by this point, I had started my own business. My relationships had greatly improved just with friends and family. I was in much better physical shape just because I started exercising and eating a little bit better. And we were talking about all this progress that I'd made when just a few years before I was in a really, really bad spot in a lot of different ways. And that was the first time I noticed. I was like, hey, I am right now where I pictured myself, where I wanted to be in these guided hypnosis and meditations. And that's when I really understood the full benefit of what that guided meditation or that guided hypnosis did for me. And it's now something that I keep up with on a pretty regular basis, at least a couple times a week. And again, there's very little investment. It takes about next to zero effort to listen to these programs, and the benefit you can get from it is just incredible. So when you're in a position where you literally hate yourself, or you're depressed, or you hate your life, you're not necessarily in a great place to say like, hey, I'm going to go exercise today, or I'm going to, eat a salad instead of a cheesesteak for lunch, because the way you're viewing yourself at that time, like you don't even think that you're worth it. Tricking yourself a little bit with this guided meditation or this guided hypnosis can allow you a little bit of wiggle room or breathing room to start making those good decisions and start improving the way you view yourself, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, the way you can improve the decisions you make on your best self-interest. And brick by brick, day by day, you start to build a better baseline of the way that you feel about yourself, the way that you make decisions, based on the person that you want to be. And again, it's hard to make that first step a lot of times, and it's hard not to sabotage yourself when you try to make good steps if you're still kind of locked into that vantage point of you thinking that you're not worth making good decisions for. So I would really suggest you guys try to seek some of this stuff out. 2 really great resources for guided hypnosis or guided meditation. Right now I use an app called Headspace. You just get off of iTunes. It's a free app, or there's a paid version, but the free app was awesome. I used it for a couple weeks before going to the paid version, and that just kind of unlocked some different programs within the application, which I thought were pretty cool and worth purchasing. But the free app is a great place to get your feet wet with this whole thing. The other really great resource is YouTube. There is a guided meditation or hypnosis, whatever you want to call it, whatever you search on YouTube, you'll get something beneficial. But there's just everything from depression, anxiety, if you want to quit smoking, if you want to lose weight, like there's a meditation or hypnosis out there that is not going to fix your problem, but it's going to help you put yourself into a frame of mind where you have a better chance of being successful, essentially. I would suggest making this a part of your daily routine, especially if you're really in the depths of depression, or if you're at a point where you don't like yourself. You have to kind of hammer it in there. And again, it's almost like the fake it till you make it idea, where you just put these thoughts into your mind, these positive images of who you want to become, how you want to feel about yourself. Do it every day for 30 days. Take 20, 30 minutes, whatever the program length is, and just listen to it. And it's really going to make a positive change on the way that you view yourself. From that point, once you get a little bit of that breathing room and you start to feel a little bit better, then you can start adding in, possibly some exercise or some, improving your diet and nutrition a little bit. Then you're really going to start making some serious progress in your overall well-being. But you got to start somewhere, and this is a really great place to start, and it's very next to no investment except for a little bit of your time, and you can make a lot of progress there. So I want to thank you guys for all the comments and suggestions. Greg and I really try to take them to heart, and we want to help you with just by going into a little bit of our experience. But if you have anything you want to hear us give some insight on, leave us a comment. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we will be talking to you soon. Thanks for watching, guys.